Born and raised in Philadelphia, he's a legendary guitarist, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and true pioneer of musical technology. Over a 50-year career, he's released more than 20 solo albums and produced some of the most iconic records in rock music. He's also been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's currently on his Damned If I Do U.S. tour, and today on KNON, we are joined by Todd Rundgren.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for being here with us today. We're excited to have you.
I'm always excited to get to Dallas. Um, it's funny, Texas, weird as it is, has some of my favorite cities, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yep.
I always like to get to those cities and see the smiling faces of the fans.
When you come to a city like this, do you think about the history you've had with it, or is it a new show every time?
As I say, I've been to Dallas quite a bit over the years. Often to play, sometimes for other reasons, and so it's not unfamiliar to me. You never know what venue though we're going to be in. I think often we're at a place like the House of Blues, something like
Right.
that, and sometimes I think we've done. I go way back with Dallas. One of the very first gigs we did with the Nas was at Texas State Fair
Wow.
at the county fairgrounds
Yeah.
in Dallas, Texas. And I remember the giant cowboy,
Yeah.
like
Tex.
that. Yes.
Yeah, he's known.
So my history with Texas goes way back to like the beginning, to my very
Yeah.
first band, and and fond memories of Dallas and Houston in those very early days.
Well, we're glad to have you back. What kind of energy or set list can your fans expect? Are you going to lean into the classics or
I'm glad that you refer to them as classics because I don't have that many so-called hits. I have a few. I've had a few successes on the radio, but most of my fans, they have various albums that are important to them, and so the biggest problem for me, and thus the name of the tour, "Damned If I Do," is trying to figure out what audience expectations might be on any particular night because it's always a mix of people. I don't have like a single kind of fan. If I had like a long string of hits on the radio, I would know, what people were expecting. But, I have people who, they don't remember much after something, anything. They remember the hits of that era. They don't remember much after. So that's what they'd like to hear. I have long-term fans, buy every record and they like to hear sometimes more obscure stuff that, I haven't played before. Um, then I have a lot of young people who come to the shows, and I'm not sure what their expectations are, because they didn't grow up with it.
right. Right.
And they discovered it through some other sort of medium. Either they heard about me because of my work with younger artists like Tame Impala and the Lemon Twigs, um, and so they're wondering who is this guy?
Right.
Who's this old guy? Sometimes they find, what they discover, they find interesting enough to come to the show. So trying to find the sweet spot in there, that satisfies everybody is a challenge. And it may not be one thing from night to night. It may be that we have to adapt to audience moods. It's funny when you play a lot, you know the difference between a Saturday night audience and a Sunday night audience.
Sure.
A Saturday night audience, they're ready to go all night. Sunday night audience is looking at their watches because they got to go relieve the babysitter and get in bed because they got to go to work the next day. So it's a challenge trying to keep the audience fully entertained,
Sure.
and depending on what their particular mood is from night to night. So that's the challenge that we're going to take on this time. I've added an acoustic segment to the show that will hopefully reach some people that, were a little harder to reach before, because that gives me the opportunity to play some of those more familiar songs, but in a different context, just to make it more interesting for me.
I saw you here in Dallas actually with Daryl Hall, and it was a good show too. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great show, but that's, you're obligated if you're opening for someone else to do your most familiar
Sure.
material,
Yeah. Yeah.
because those people didn't necessarily come to see you. Maybe some of them did, but for
We
the
did.
most part, yeah, okay. Well, for the most part, they come to see the
See
headliner.
the
So
headliner, right, right. I'm glad you brought up the band because I was looking at the names and I noticed you've got some horn section there and you've toured with a lot of different band configurations. What keeps it interesting for you and why these guys this time?
well, this has become a pretty stable unit. For a long time, I had a four-piece band,
Hmm.
keyboard, guitar, bass, and drums. And then I would usually play guitar, rarely play keyboards live anymore, just because I'm so sloppy, you know. But this particular lineup, these five guys, have pretty much been my go-to for at least the last 5 years, and some of them for the last 50 years. Kazim Sultan,
Right.
I've played with
Yeah.
him since the 70s. Um, uh, Prairie has been my drummer on and off since the late 80s. Um, Jesse, my guitar player, until a couple of years ago, he had been my guitarist since the late 80s.
Yeah.
So whatever changes have happened have been through some sort of regular attrition.
Sure.
Like for a long time, Greg Hawkes from the Cars was my keyboard player,
Right.
and then he decided to retire from the road. So I had to find someone else. And for a while, fell back on some more familiar people. But when we did the Utopia reunion several years back, Ralph Shuckett, who was the original keyboard player in the band, Roger Powell didn't want to play anymore. He had completely retired from the road, so he didn't want to join the reunion. Ralph Shuckett was an original member of the band, and so that would have been great. We'd have four original
Right.
band members. But he developed some weird medical condition that prevented him from coming out. And like
Yeah.
10 days before rehearsal, we
Wow.
find this out. We got to find another keyboard player. And
Yeah.
that's when we discovered Gil Asayas, who's been my keyboardist ever since.
Cool.
The core of the band kind of stayed the same, and then when people leave, so some other
Sure.
person comes in and replaces them. Significant thing is like Bobby Strickland, as he mentioned, my horn player has become a more or less permanent part of the band, and that's a little different.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I know that road life is tough and it's hard to keep it up, especially when you got things going on. But is it still fun for you? Do you still enjoy doing it?
The travel can get tiresome. Sometimes it's we travel by bus mostly, which is better than flying commercial air, especially
Mhm.
nowadays. You never know if your flight's going to take off. So
Right.
um, we travel by bus, and we don't overcrowd it too much. So we have a fairly small crew, and with me and the band, that's six. We have a crew maybe of four, something like that. So that's the fairly comfortable number of people to get into a bus.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy like being in the cities that I go to. I kind of hate it when we go to a gig, like it might be in some college town and you have to stay in a motel out by the highway, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But if we get to stay in the city, that's when I really enjoy it. I like to go out. I like to walk a lot.
That's cool. Yeah. Feel the town out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some places, there I have favorite places that I like to go. I'm more familiar with the city, so I might
Right.
have the actual destination there.
Anything great in Dallas aside from Dealey Plaza or
Yeah, well, everybody has a freaking Dealey Plaza. It's I I'm not into that, conspiracies and all that other stuff. So I
Right.
don't like go visit Dealey Plaza and inspect the grassy knoll
Right,
or
right.
anything like that. Finding some sort of regular haunt seems to be a little bit more trouble because it seems like I'm always in a different place in
And it's
Dallas.
always changing here in Dallas. I mean, there's so much movement. It's just constantly, moving and changing.
Yeah, it's one of those cities where there's, a lot of construction always, and it's like Tokyo.
Yeah.
You go back a year later and you don't recognize half of it.
Man, I really want to talk about technology because you've been an innovator from early interactive broadcasts to VR shows. And do you feel like technology has finally caught up to you, or is it still limiting your creative concepts?
People think I'm a technologist, that I just like automatically will take to anything. But for instance, I don't have a cell phone. Uh,
Huh.
there are technologies that work for me, and then there are technologies um, that don't work as well for me. And for
Right,
instance, I find that I do most of my communication through email messaging, and that's enough.
right,
I don't need to be on the phone with people all the time.
right. You get it when
Uh,
you check it.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty much it, and kind of like over the years watching people's behavior change just because they have a cell phone and they expect anyone else with a cell phone, to answer them right now.
right.
They get
Correct.
mad at you if you don't answer the phone as soon as they call you. So I essentially have opted out of all of that. But, for instance, AI I've found very useful, but I don't do silly things with it, like try and develop a personal relationship.
Right.
It's like I ask it to do things for me. I'm very
Sure.
specific about what I want it to do. And for those particular things, it does a terrific job. I'm not a particularly good graphic artist. I have an eye, but I don't have the education or, some of the skill set to be a good graphic artist. So I don't mind asking AI to make a picture for me, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's great. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask about that. Do you see it as a tool for creativity or a destroyer?
I don't use it. I haven't found a any examples of AI that would write music like I would write it.
Right.
There, and it's probably mostly destined to be that way, unless I wanted to build my own, language model,
Sure.
that's populated with nothing but my music. Then maybe I could ask AI to write a song a la, how I would do it. But AI essentially, its source, what it listens to, is whatever is the most popular.
Right. Yeah.
It's because it's just following the trends. It's like, what are people listening to? Okay, I'll listen to that now,
Right. Regurgitate it.
and stuff like that. So it's pretty much, almost all these algorithms that write music are gonna, if you say write a pop song, it's gonna sound like Taylor Swift.
Right.
If you say,
Right.
right, it's going whatever genre you ask it to write in, it's going to write for whatever it's going to write whatever is the most popular thing in that
Yeah.
genre.
And I think there's something about star power. Like there still is a whole package concept that AI will never be able to replicate.
Well, it won't be able to do the dancing, will it? But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think that's become a substitute for, for serious songwriting, though.
Sure.
The fact that you're going to go out on the road, it seems like a lot of songwriters nowadays, they're just they're not looking to write necessarily a whole lyric. They're looking for a meme. They're looking for a thing that kids are going to repeat.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know,
A hook.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of like little thing, and let's throw the rest of the lyrics away. They don't matter.
Yeah.
Just so long as we get that meme in there,
Yeah.
get the hook in. And so it seems like a lot of what gets written today is more about personal branding. Because a lot of people, they're not even interested in making a long-term investment in music. They want to get quickly to the shoe design,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
designing their own clothing line or something like that, because that's where the money is. And
Yeah.
it's hard to make music. It's hard to make money at music nowadays unless you can crack a certain level. you know,
Yeah.
unless you can sort of like get to the arenas and things like that and start selling a lot of merch and stuff like that, until you do that, most other acts are just, they're paying the bills. That's it. You're not getting rich at it.
Yeah, and it's sad for art's sake in the sense that I'm pretty sure we all started this because we wanted some artistic freedom, right? Like some kind of creative outlet. Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of, and there have been demographic changes that also affect the kind of music that gets made.
sure.
And it all started to change in the 90s because boys stopped buying music and started spending all their discretionary money on video games.
Right.
And so that's why we are now still kind of in the era of, female singers dominating the market. The biggest artist in the world is Taylor Swift.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't listen to her, but 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 essentially it's because the people who are buying all the music were all young girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the young guys are buying video games.
I hear she's an incredible businesswoman and owning the rights to all her stuff, and it's the place to be, right?
I guess, it's, it doesn't move me, but it certainly moves a lot of women and now she's, appealing to second generation
Sure.
of women as well, the daughters of her original fans,
Right.
essentially.
You've said that you tend to get bored and move on to the next idea. Do you find that a strength or a weakness? And the follow-up question to that is, are you making music right now?
I'm always making music in my head.
Right.
That sort of never stops. The challenging part is getting it out of my head, and into a listenable form. And also the fact that I've made so many records already that it's a challenge trying not to repeat what you've done already.
Right.
Although there's probably a contingent of fans who say, just do that.
Right.
Just repeat, just keep writing "Hello, it's me" over and over
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
that sort of thing. So, but that wouldn't do anything for me. Making music is I'm kind of like a traditional artist in that sense, and that's how I express myself. It can be frustrating, trying to get what you feel externalized, and so that it can be shared with other people. And I've been that way for a long time. I've been that way pretty much since Something Anything, because when I completed that record, I realized that I hadn't invested a whole lot personally in the material. I was just like, it was just coming out because I had achieved some sort of a formula.
Right.
And I was writing the same kind of lyrics that everyone else was writing. Oh, baby, you broke my heart. I'm never going to get over it. Da, da, this kind of thing, And I realized that, that was a hype, that was all hypothetical. I was over that relationship, whatever it was that I was drawing all those lyrics from, that was long gone.
Right.
So I had to write about the things that I actually was thinking about, the things
Yeah.
that concerned me.
Wow.
And so that's when I began to depend more on my subconscious, where your personal truth resides, where it's unfiltered,
Yeah.
it's the real you without a
The
filter.
real you. Yeah.
And so yeah, to this day I depend more and more on my subconscious to help me with the process.
Yeah. I like that. What a fantastic answer. If you're just joining us, we are joined on the phone today by solo artist, rock and roll Hall of Famer, multi-instrumentalist, and producer Todd Rundgren. Thanks again, Todd, for joining us on the phone today on KNON.
My pleasure. It's been great.
I just want to talk about some of your productions. You've produced for artists like Meatloaf and XTC. We actually had Terry Chambers on this very show last year, and from XTC. And when you step into another person's project like that, how do you impose your creativity without taking away from what they have brought you to do?
Well, every project is different. They're not the needs aren't always the same.
Okay.
Sometimes, throughout my career, I've done a lot of first albums for people, premiere albums.
Right.
And in that particular case, I'm making up for their complete lack of experience in the studio.
Sure.
So there might be a lot that I would have to do. Then there are other instances in which I kind of just push the buttons. The act may have it all together. They have great songs and know how to perform them, and I'm just kind of doing the logistics of the process and maybe doing the mix in the end.
Hmm.
So the needs of any particular artist are different, and I have never been kind of like a style oriented producer. In other words, there are some producers, people uh, ask for their participation because they have a recognizable style. The end
Right.
product has a recognizable sound to it. But I tend to deal with, sometimes more challenges. Like, for instance, when I was working with Grand Funk Railroad, they already had an audience. That wasn't their problem. And they had enough money to buy the world's biggest billboard in Times Square,
Right. Right.
Um, but they had no respect. They had no respect and they couldn't crack AM radio, you know. And so, as long as we knew what that was, and as long as they were prepared to do what was necessary in order to accomplish that, and they knew that they needed to do that, then it just went like clockwork.
Right.
It was one of the strangest success stories I've ever been involved in because um, there was a lot of high expectations about the new relationship with their relationship with a new producer. All of their previous stuff had been done by Terry Knight, who
Hmm.
was not a very good producer, and um, and so like we went into Criterion Studios and recorded the track the first day. We got our sounds and recorded the track to We're an American Band the first day. The second day we came in early and finished it, put the vocals on and mixed it, and went into the mastering lab that they had at Criterion Studios and cut the single.
Wow.
And I don't know what we put on the B side. I think it was We're an American Band on both sides of the single because we hadn't recorded anything else yet. And so, it went directly from there to the pressing plant.
Wow.
And in those days, you could chart a record on advance orders. In other words, nothing had sold, no records had sold, but so many records had been ordered in advance that the week after they already had records DJ copies to send to the DJs, and the week after we recorded and mastered the song, it charted.
Wow.
A week after we recorded it, it charted just by the being released,
Yeah.
the record charted because you didn't actually have to have them in the stores itself. It just pre-orders of the record.
Right.
And that was the most miraculous thing I ever experienced in the music business, to
Yeah.
be able to do something like that, to
Yeah,
record
for
it
sure.
one day.
I'm glad you told that story. One of my follow-up questions was there one that stood out to you? And that sounds incredible.
That's one of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's still one of the most recognizable records of all time. I mean, they're incredible, those guys too. Grand Funk.
Yeah, there's I don't know what state they're in now. I don't think there is a Grand Funk anymore.
Yeah,
But it was interesting to me, how underestimated they had been.
sure.
Part of their problem was that when they originally formed, they wanted to be like Cream, you know, right? Kind of like flimsy songs and then jam a lot.
Right.
And and so the first records, would have like five songs on them or something, and they, suddenly realized, hey, maybe we should write some songs
Yeah.
this time,
Got to do some
we'll write
stuff.
some real songs this time, with real arrangements. We won't just like ad lib our way through the whole thing,
Right.
and that was what they needed to do, and that kind of changed everything for them.
Fantastic. I love that story. I'm starting to think now, is there a documentary? If not, there needs to be one with you telling that story.
I wonder.
You were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021. Did that feel incredibly special to you, or did you say, "Hey, I've been here the whole time"?
Well, see, I was never into the Rock Hall of Fame. I was never, and there was never a way that I was going to think it was a good idea.
Okay, right,
It's just, one of those genres that was supposed to be, if you were going to be strict about it,
right.
one of those genres that was going to come and go, you know. and it did come and go, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and I realized at a certain point they're gonna call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But they're gonna have to make excuses, you know, for nominating people because they're gonna run out of original rock and rollers. And it's not as if they have run out of them. They just don't nominate them anymore.
Right, right.
You know, why has Betty LaVette not been nominated? You know,
I mean,
what is
right.
going on with that? She's an original, you know. She
Wow.
was there when when it started. She was there in the 60s, you know, so it seems ridiculous some of the people who get nominated.
Right.
Um, First of all, they didn't play anything that resembles rock and roll, and it was a bunch of rich guys telling everybody what the music was supposed to be, you know.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I'm surprise, surprise. Oh, we're going to start the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, here, you put in $1 million, and I'll put in $1 million, and we'll get all our rich friends to put in $1 million, and then we'll tell everyone what the music is supposed to be.
Right. So, not the highest honor ever.
I was ne I was never into it, but other people seem like hugely impressed by it,
Sure.
and I'm not exactly sure why, but you know, they've managed to hype the Rock Hall of Fame to the point that, you know, a large segment of the population does take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there is some segment of the population who's wised up to it, you know, when they realize when Madonna got nominated, you know, the jig was up.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got over 2 dozen studio albums, essentially. And are there records in
More than that,
what's that?
more than that, I think the bio that you had is probably several years old, but I've got over 30 solo records.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Up Against It was a very obscure one. It only came out in Japan.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
it was essentially my demos for the musical that I wrote for the Public Theater.
Cool.
Um,
Do you feel like there's records in your catalog that are misunderstood that people don't still fully understand?
well, it doesn't much matter, I
Okay.
guess, in
Sure.
that sense. You know, I don't make the records um, for any particular kind of reaction. It's just me talking to the listener, you know, and here's what I have to say now. Hopefully, it's not something that you've already heard before, and especially something I've said before, because I hate repeating myself. It's not I never know what the reaction is going to be because I'm not factoring in some kind of expected audience response when I'm making it.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out how can I convey this as accurately as possible or in a way that is most likely to be understood.
Incredible. I love that. You have obviously tapped into something successful, and your unique songwriting style has taken you very, very far. And I don't have any other way to say it, but I'm proud of you. That's
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you.
I mean, it's hard to be in an industry and to be, a hero like you are, whether you're, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or not.
Well, it's one of I just can't help myself. You know,
Yeah,
it's one of those things that, and it's all the product of me having been a record producer pretty
right,
much.
right.
Because when I first started out, I had a band. The band didn't succeed, and that only lasted maybe 18 months, less than 2 years. And at that point, I decided I didn't want to be, you know, a star or a performer, but I wanted to make records, and that's when I became an engineer and record producer, and
Yeah,
I was very successful at it, and it made me very comfortable. I made a very comfortable living at it, and so I wasn't under the same pressure that most other artists are to succeed economically
hmm,
as well as artistically, which is a very fine line, to
yeah,
be able to do both. And so it's just that became my habit. I make money when I produce other people. I Money never enters my head when I'm producing my own records. And so it's become kind of, accepted fact that the next record that I make will not resemble the last record.
right.
And it may also be a challenge for the listener to fully grasp what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
They may not get it the first time, or they may not fully enjoy it the first time, but it's a well-known fact that if you get to the second listen, You're suddenly going to hear something you didn't hear the first time.
Right. Right.
That's going to make you curious to listen again
Yeah.
and again. It's just the little things that are hidden in there that the first time you don't fully grasp them,
Yeah.
but the second time you realize there's a little detail I didn't notice before. Oh, and that makes a little bit more sense to me now that I noticed that thing. And then after successive listens, one or another of the songs will suddenly get inside you and make you and force you to listen again.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm intrigued and very excited to have you back here in Dallas, Texas for your own show. We're really excited about it. I mean, you painted a really fantastic picture there.
And I'm anxious to and I'm anxious to do it in Dallas. Dallas is actually pretty early in the tour. It's only about maybe a week into the tour. So we'll still be, probably experimenting with a few things. The set may be in some sort of flux and may remain in flux for the entire tour. As I say, trying to be a little more adaptable to the mood of the audience and maybe make changes and adjustments while the show's going on, just to accommodate that.
Thank you, Todd, again for your time. We've had Todd Rundgren over the phone with us here on KNON, and we really appreciate it. Can't wait to have you back here.
Thanks a lot, Jay.
Thank you, Todd.